not been successful, somewhere fresh and somewhere more innovative. So on our panel, you'll see the bios in the brochure. My name is James Serene, I'm the CEO of BICOM. We have Prisha Yakubovic, who is a reserve colonel in the Israel Defense Forces. He was ideas about things he would like to see done in the future and stories about things he made possible in the past. His Excellency Rosen Wood, who is the ambassador for Jordan. Dalia Scheindlin from Mitvim and also 972, the news website. Oh, and I should say that when we have all spoken, I will be asking for some questions from the floor, so we will have a bit of audience contribution. If I could call on Ambassador Jordan to begin by making a few remarks.
To Palestine and its citizens, and its situation impacts us directly. Efforts to or mediator in a peace process, but has a real and tangible impact. Speaker, given hours of expose of the state of the world, passing through the many conflicts it's witnessing, affairs with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The position of my country remains that of the international community exemplified by international legitimacy. The position remains a two-state solution, that is, achieving a just peace through realizing a homeland for the Palestinian people on Palestine, living side by side to Israel, including all substantive issues, including status of Jerusalem, refugees, security, border, and water, in accordance with the principles of international legitimacy for a comprehensive settlement, a settlement that will enable Israel to have normal relations with 57 Arab and Muslim countries. But how could any process leading to peace happen without the seizure of all unilateral actions that threatens its continuity? The West Bank is occupied territory. And based on international law and conventions, it is occupying power's responsibility to maintain the status quo. This is illegal by all standards and creates a major obstacle towards any peace process. The Israeli peace process and puts us all on the verge of a devastating religious war exclusively. In line with His Majesty the King's Hashemite custodianship of Muslim and Christian holy sites, those acts must be understood are considered aggressive and have incited violence. They have given extremists and outlaws across Europe and the world. They have devastating impact on the resumption of negotiations aimed at bringing about peace in the Middle East. Conflict between Islam and Judaism. The conflict is over justice. It's over geographical space meant for a legitimate homeland for Palestinians. They're monotheistic religions. One cannot be superficial in believing in Christianity and Judaism. A true complete Muslim, His Majesty the King explained, and I quote, Muslims believe in the divine origin of the Bible and the Torah. God has been revealed to Abraham, to Ishmael, to Isaac, to Jacob, and the tribes. In the Quran, His Majesty continued, in the Quran, His mother named Maryam. Finally, and going back to the beginning of my remarks, then can the credibility of the international community and the chaos the world application only fuels a state of unrest and exposes the weaknesses of the international system if it loses its gravity. It remains the nucleus of all problems in the region and intensifying its state of effort. Thank you.
Within the next 30 seconds. Okay. So what I will do. Oh, we are actually going to die.
Sorry, they're waiting on the line.
Hello. Hi, Mr. Herzog, can you hear us? Is there not a way that you can hear?
Yes.
Okay, starting off on a panel talking about Israel and the Palestinians, and we just heard from the Jordanian ambassador. I think you were just called in to vote about. If you could just give us
an important conference of BICOM and Jewish News, Jordanian ambassador. Jordan is a very important element in the region, and I think His Majesty King Abdullah has been trying really ends based on the settlers movement of the Jewish home. Together with Likud elements is coercing the government to move on the, and a lot of pressure that everybody has applied, including the leaders of the legal system in Israel. Circumstances of the citizens of Amona, they are good Israelis. All Amona must be evicted as it is situated on private Arab land, and under the legal aim to find solutions for the citizens of Amona and move on. And there's no other choice but to respect the
status quo between Israel and the Palestinians. Now, you've talked in the past about unilateral steps, some kind of settlement.
Well, first and foremost, the final objective settlement blocks, which comprise about a swap of land of other lands, and there are many alternatives and possibilities to implement that, whereby the Jordan River is the security boundary possible. I recently quoted the American independence, and he said, once the region recognizes Israel, once the region crosses the Rubicon, and this was before Sadat came to Israel, all the rest is immediate adjacent neighbors, both Egypt and Jordan, with outstanding leadership, and the Emirates, together with Egypt and Jordan, can pursue, together with Israel, a unique golden opportunity which has been there for months and may run away because of the moment. This was actually the reason why Victor Lieberman is Minister of Defense. I was thinking that the two major Zionist movements need to align together with the 2000, whereby the Arab states left the parties alone for themselves. Today there is an opportunity of support by the Arab leaders to that, currently a unique opportunity.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is really, how are you going to be in a position where you get to do all of that stuff? So, election. It wasn't successful in the last election, but what are your ideas?
Of the current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a process which is known in politics. And of the right, Naftali Bennett or Benjamin Netanyahu. On our side of the political spectrum, we've got Lapid, large body. We have 24 seats right now. We are the second largest. It is true that those really don't matter before elections. What will happen in elections, in my mind, there will be a wrong direction. And in order to take Israel into a different direction,
so if I was an Israeli journalist, I would have to pick up and ask you, so what you said about...
I have to speak to the mic.
Sorry, and what you said about Yair Lapid...
I've mentioned it a few times. Lapid rejects it all, totally rejects it. Lapid actually an increase of our side of the spectrum. Lapid, Zionist Union, and the people on that side of the political spectrum are fed up by what Netanyahu is pursuing, or his government, when it comes to basic guidelines against what one would call motherhood and apple pie, basic values of into other elements, including the legalization bill, because the legalization bill is in Epitome Z says it's unlawful. And the Attorney General of the committee, of the Constitutional Committee that deals with it, says it's unlawful, and yet they're pursuing it.
Questions, and then we'll wrap up. One question is, I'm sure that you might still be having meetings now.
Again, look, there's a difference between how one presents this abroad and in Israel. One needs to understand, in Israel, since it's a multi-part out of Gaza, so you walk the floor with different elements. Unfortunately, I've tried my best, bona fide, to check it, because I wanted to prevent another round of bloodshed. And I believe there's a good to the right, back to its base, rejected the offer, and I don't see any chance of that being repeated again.
Have set up a meeting I'd like to give.
Look, the Labour Party in Britain is a sister crisis in Israel. I couldn't be with you now, and I couldn't be with you yesterday. But that was actually a message that the Labour to Israel. I invited him to visit with me in Yad Vashem and understand the Israeli story. I hosted Ed Miliband before and many leaders of Labour. What in return was a letter by Jeremy Corbyn telling me that he doesn't see any opportunity of visiting Israel. I do hope sincerely that there will be an opportunity for him to story of Christianity and Islam in the Holy Land, who extends its hands for peace with all the debates, where the Supreme Court is our in the world. And unfortunately, I got a refusal, and I hope.
Right, if we move back, and if people don't know, Kobe has a fascinating life, as well as being a consultant to various tech companies. He also spends a lot of his time having political elites and other elites in Arab states about how they are both opening up to Israel and what.
There are 6 conceptual problems in the way we look at solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to be a regional package deal, at the heart of which we have two-state solution, but we also have by the framework where Israel negotiates based on the API and an Israeli peace initiative. So to lead and will be implemented in one country, to be led by the US, by rather than dictate. Once we have an agreement of any kind, to keep fighting terrorism for at least 10 to 15 years. In fact, we need to prepare for that more than just are falling in love with an internationally imposed solution. That won't work either. And we need to stop thinking about international imposed solution and leave the parties more than just Israelis and Palestinians. And the kind of music where more and more Israeli politicians begin to use the word regional opportunity with a capital R is not coming just, and lo and behold, it comes also verbally from Prime Minister Netanyahu, taking a new regional paradigm to solving and eventually achieving the two-state solution as part of a regional package.
Make it easier.
If you bring Israelis and Palestinians to negotiate, there is complete asymmetry in the equation. Palestinians, in return for strategic benefits offered by, and agreements offered by the Arab state. Second, some of the core issues, and other core issues as well. Third, take tough decisions with legitimacy is key to reaching structural diplomacy, because that will change the framework. And if you have today, we want to see these words turned into public diplomacy.
Okay, thank you. I've heard about the different ways, but it's often called the idea of confederation, on movement, to something much more flexible, something much more open, because it is so out there as a potential proposal. But Dalia,
a lot of people say, well, we all have to think outside the box. And then people like us who have been considering this federal framework for a number of years get accused of just trying to think outside the box and coming up with your inside the box is dangerous and not happening in any case. So let me get to what I mean when we talk about, you put it as like confederation or different kinds of two states. I want to look at it as two states 2.0. Let me lower expectations about how radical it is from laws. These are two states that in this approach willingly decide to share certain elements. The social movement organization really is a very loose collection of people. I talk about open border, so in other words, there is a border. These are two different states, I will emphasize that again. But the default is that there's more mobility. People aren't trapped, locked. Those people who are two-state, hard two-state from the ground, on the ground, and going to those neighborhoods and looking at the way Jerusalem is structured. I have an increased capital in different parts, a shared municipality. The holy sites would be internationalized, as has been proposed in numerous other proposals. And the other major innovation that I think is, the more complex thing that people really need to think about is delinking residency from citizenship. So what do I Israel's national parliament? They would vote on municipal and local elections in where they live, but they would live subject to Palestinian law. But they are Israeli citizens. They would vote in national elections for Israel. And then on the other side, you can allow Palestinians to live as permanent residents inside, because the default does not have to be evacuation. Realizes how hard this is. Now, we all know that many of them will not be in areas slated for dismantling or evacuation. 5 caused a political rift that has not healed to this day. It caused the ideological settler population to completely regroup and make it sink inside. I think Israeli policymakers and public discourse are probably fooling themselves to think that the idea is residents, but they won't be citizens. They will vote in the Palestinian state if they want to. There's lots of things, I'm sure this raises lots of questions, and I want also threats, like pollution, which are serious threats. We tend to forget about these things in the heat of policy discussions, but they're actually extremely urgent when you consider, for example, the failing sewage infrastructure of Gaza and the threat that that poses to the entire South Port, so that both sides can be held to the same standards for claims on either side. And the main question I know you're all going to ask is, what about security? So I will give you my basic approach to it. I'm not necessarily representing every people in the two states. I think things aren't worse. I think my security colleagues will correct me, but I've talked with enough of you to know. It's because of security cooperation between Israel and Palestinians. And that's under a situation of nearly 50 years of occupation. So the way I envision it is that you have a situation where we reach an agreement. Both sides are being governed by their own governments. They continue the security.
So from the big plans to maybe the smaller steps, I want to bring in Grisha, and I think there's kind of a tendency for often politics to get in the way of things that need to just be sorted out on a civil level in the West Bank, and sometimes a lot of the sometimes that actually people get involved. And I think what would be really interesting is, Grisha, you tell us about some of the things you did at COGAP, some of the things that perhaps are not as well known, and some of your ideas for the future.
Particularly about a one-state or a two-state solution, the reality of a three-state solution that is actually going on. And this is the major problem that we need to against Israel. We have a Palestinian Authority entity in the West Bank, led by Abu Mazen, Abbas, and we have a state of Israel. So we need to negotiate with whom and to complete this process of influence in Gaza, and it's not working. And it creates a huge dilemmas to a practical, immediate solution to the issue. What do I mean by that? Gaza is about to enter to a crisis in 2020. The aquifer is going to be ruined, and to rehabilitate this aquifer, it will take between 70 to 1. The solution is very simple. To build a desalination plant in Gaza of something like 110 MCM, million cubic meters per year. We have the donors, we have the EU budget to that, we have the Arab countries to donate for that, but nobody will. What is the way to support Gaza with energy? Hamas are collecting the bills from the people. They are supposed to deliver the money to Abu Mazen. They are not delivering the money. Israel is deducting the electricity from the because Hamas are not paying the money. And you will continue deducting from us. We are not ready for this process. Connection between private companies. It is a project that can be done quite immediately. In Gaza, solving the water problems or the sewage problems will not be used to increase the amount with the Arab countries, with the donors, with the Palestinians. And the biggest problem is that this is a catch-22. It means in 2020, if they will have no water to drink, what is going to happen? And ask from somebody to put this support of the solutions out there on the table. You just need somebody to deal with. Another issue that the trust was torn apart from both sides. I remember myself being guys, the same Palestinian colleagues, opened fire on me and on my soldiers and killed 2 of my soldiers between both sides. So we need to build the trust. Because we are going to lose this window of a successor of Abu Mazen. But I'm not sure that if they will implement. Because in Gaza the narrative is Israel understands only power. In the West Bank, Abu Mazen leads a narrative that says, I do not, we need, as in the state of Israel, to do much more to power up the street in the West Bank. Because the street in the West Bank gained nothing from this process. So we need to solve the water problems and politicize the issue of water in the West Bank. Okay? We need to stop doing it. We can supply 40, 50, 60, 70 MCM. Difficult decision of both sides. They politicized the JWC, the Joint Water Company, before I retired. I'm in pension, well, I'm in charge. There's such a with the Palestinian minister. And I don't know, maybe it's not the things that we and the Palestinians love to show in media. we prefer to keep it quiet. But back on both sides, we talk to each other, we coordinate with each other, and both, we have a civilian daily coordination. We are coordinating water projects. We are coordinating discussion on a daily basis. I think my successor succeeded to complete the mission. I negotiated for 5 years this issue of negotiation. It means Kogat is leading a negotiation with Israelis about things, and you would want us to look good. It will be a boomerang in your face, so that we are trying to use media or populism to look good, but there are hundreds of things. Another 7,000 Palestinians are working in industrial zones in the West Bank. It is an aim to continue this trend of boycotting Israeli market and whatever. Who is going to lose? We need to talk to the Israeli Palestinian ministry, we need to talk to the Palestinian worker, and you need to provide them a permit. You cannot do it if you will not have a direct negotiation, daily coordination.
Thank you very much. Now what I want to do is just ask the panel, and no one quite knows what he's going to do, I'm not even sure he does, but the Republican platform doesn't mention a Palestinian state. It says Israel is not an occupier. It doesn't say anything about settlements. So what happens to freedom of maneuver to Israel? But both Israel and the Palestinians realize...
First of all, the elimination of the two-state solution. Second, I want to remind ourselves that we are, after 8 years, because nobody really knows where the administration of Trump is actually going. I think it is in the shaping and in the making. I will just, whereby in 2014, she offered Secretary Kerry. Historically, Republicans understood regional dilution. Third, and I think this is also a signal, the response to Donald Trump. So let's not rule out anything. That if we had the illusion that had it been Hillary Clinton, we are eluding ourselves. This is based on what we have heard from her consultants. She was going to wait for at least a year before moving in. Interest to make progress, and there are shared interests between Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Arab world. The future administration will actually say or do.
If I just bring in Ambassador Jordan to respond to that.
Reason to believe that one has to give the benefit of the doubt and to think positively about the coming days. But I think that I would agree with the last speaker by looks forward and not to rely too much on outside force. Create solutions. Will be part of the region. I don't understand why people have a hard time. Historically, your problem has not been with us. It's going to be with others, but not with us. So when the entire 57 countries brings out their hands and says, be part of that world, I believe in the platform. They are creative ideas, but if it is adopted, will we have me to what was said again on the panel? And I'm just trying to be proactive here. I'm not trying to cherry pick things and things. Leading on this approach is disempowered, is embarrassed, then you don't have a leadership forward. It's about respecting commitments. It's about sitting down together with credibility and we move ahead. The regional solution is on the table, but in a much larger fashion. It's not about 5, 6, 7 states, because how do you convince any creative solution? There is, there's no guarantee about anybody who's secured. There's no guarantee about security. Nothing is guaranteed. But Israel, from what I've been hearing, it's supported by world powers. We want peace, and this is what all of us want. It is for the betterment of people. It's a betterment by target. And when we work towards that 100% security guarantee, there's always danger.
Creative, we are, I think, too creative not to be done. So let's make it simple. When we deal with current sewage, economy, workers, we can open the borders with the security system. All we need is a very simple guarantee. Installed there. And let's have industry. This morning panel about high-tech. Why don't we use possible? We as Kogat are supporting it. We already know a few hundred that we can do all of us if that's what we
Redeploy from some areas, just sort of unilateral steps. We say, right, we're now redeploying from these areas. We're not going
Some of the areas we can mark as strategic by simplicity to authorize to Palestinian villages or to authorize master plans, to add electricity at the end. There is politics in. What do I mean by that? Let's talk just about infrastructure, water networking in the villages. On the other hand, if I'm adding water to Palestinian villages, it means I'm adding water, we can implement them. It's simple. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, simplicity. It just reminds me yesterday that he'd been talking to some of Prime Minister Netanyahu's advisors, and he had, conceptually it's all quite possible. He said practically it's very, very difficult. And so a lot of this is public opinion, and we did BICOM did some track to dialogue, and there isn't the public support on the Israeli side, and that's why we're stuck. But I just wanted to bring Dalia in to say, well, is that the case? How do we
Work without the public, as we see, especially when there's a referendum, and as people know, Israel does have a referendum law. Now, I'm talking primarily about the Jewish Israeli public, but of course, the Arab population is 20%, so it doesn't change the average enough. The vast majority of the Jewish public in quantitative surveys continue the status quo or sign an agreement. Inevitably, the majority just say, well, we can continue the way things are now. And that's part of the problem. It's not the only problem. Then the question is, what's the relationship to leadership? So it's somewhere between hopelessness. It's not because the Israeli public is bad or the political leadership doesn't have particular intent. But specifically, if we talk about Area C, this government is not only not doing what you're saying, this government is doing quite the opposite. You know, sending out and thinks the status quo should just wait until there's negotiations. That's not exactly what it's actually doing. What's happening on the ground is deepening. The problem is that the public and the leadership are locked into this cycle of A, the status quo, B, changing the status. You have, a greater portion of Israeli society is right-wing. Okay, so again, going to survey research, we see that about a quarter who consider themselves centrist, and about 15% to 17%. It's like a market. They're in competition, and they're in competition. But we just heard here, being soft on terror and all the things take any perfect. We shouldn't even try. And I think that again, the sort of we've all been talking about, whether it's two states or a different kind of two states. I do want to clarify one thing when you talked about that we had one sovereign ruling from the river to the sea, and all those different models that you might call theoretical, but somebody has to envision them.
Of leadership and public opinion. And it's after being decided to recognize the
We
PLO.
know from Bacon.
But a day after, or a few weeks after he did sign the included, different set of polls that we have conducted, two-state approach, but in declining numbers, or what we did find in both and in Palestine. And therefore we need to look at this paradigm, and we need to look at the importance of leadership as the leading element, because with the right leaders, the support.
Okay. I think we really need to, the audience is probably itching to ask questions, the audience from their lunch. This gentleman here had his hand go up first, so am I taking?
I'd like to just address His Excellency Mazen Hammoud. I like what you said in the second part, very animated, and nobody has perfect security, I agree with you. The dimension is one thing, and the second thing is about the youth, and about, somebody mentioned not poisoning young people's minds. The youth, if you put good stuff in their mind, you can see solutions. If you put bad stuff in their mind, they see just despair.
So the question is?
Focus on the youth.
Exactly your point, but I've tested all sorts of, in the past and recently, all sorts of incentives that we've asked the Israeli public if the Palestinians were to do X, Y, Z, many kinds of things. I will also say that studies have been conducted, funded by, with American government funding, quantitative methodological studies showing that there's quite a bit less incitement than is typically understood in the Israeli discourse. The Israeli government has outright rejected that study. So we know what we're talking about when we adopt the tropes and looking into the subject matter on our own.
Ambassador wants to make a brief comment.
Yeah, just all of the polls in Israel, what do people think? And everybody is negative about everything. You have to understand that what applies in Britain for an election, the people in Israel will follow what the leadership is saying, or it has a lot of influence and given out free of charge. Of course it's going to have an impact on how people think. So You have to keep this, but if you are kept in fear all the time, of course that's going to influence your thinking. So when you look at polls, keep this in mind.
Just one point, sharing informal posts and things on Facebook and other social media outlets, but with a real problem. But yeah, if we could have another question, gentleman here.
Iran as Mr. Netanyahu is Saudi Arabia and some of the Gulf states. And I just wonder if that common interest, my enemy's enemy is my friend, provides an opportunity.
Our chief intelligence officer, Herzi Halevi, said a few days ago, and that was quoted in Haaretz, that our shared interest is definitely valuable and viable.
And secondly, we saw in Colombia that populations are quite cynical about peace deals, especially once they think of avoiding terror in some way. So what makes the panel think this will be so simple to get through? Because that's been their language.
When did we start to talk to Fatah? I don't know if you remember, but Fatah was the worst organization, Black September, terrifying Fatah members, okay, during those negotiations behind the curtain, and having some agreement with those, maybe, and I'm just asking maybe, is it the time to talk to those guys? Is it the time to a different culture? And we understand, as Koga, for example, we understand the culture in Gaza and in the West Bank. There are some.
Yeah, I mean, I think that basically you can't make an agreement unless you involve parties who have the political power to implement it. And it did negotiate that. That happened through negotiations. I mean, I think it's, you know, I'm not going to say whether I support it or not, but I do think it may be inevitable. Colombia is a very interesting case. All I can say about it is that you're right. There was a lot of cynicism. People didn't want to do what they did wrong. We presumably will have a referendum to making the case. It is in danger of not passing.
In signature and referendum, you know, in this country you may lose referendum if you're the government. Yeah.
And we think it's going to be part of a regional framework. I would hate to think with us, so it is the wrong move. And may I remind people that Hamas have problems, but I do believe that the underlying other parts of the
Thank you very much, Kobe. I'm afraid we're panelists. Thank you all. Thank you.